Alrighty. So yesterday we talked a little bit about the way that businesses adapted to sort of fight against labor and the the strange sort of unintended consequence that the more that businesses clamped down on labor and pushed this idea that labor was part of this vast conspiracy orchestrated by Marxists and socialists and Illuminati or whatever else, the more that laborers began to think that the Marxists and the anarchists were actually right about what they were saying. And how maybe all of this together culminates, and you can sort of see the outcome of this in the Haymarket riot of May the 4th. May the 4th be with you. Well, it was with the Haymarket riot, I guess, of 1886. So again, just a little bit of a review. The AFL decided that they were going to stage a one-day strike across every industry possible, involving every union possible, to make the point that they were looking for an 8-hour workday. And that by contacting all the unions, not just the big national unions like the Knights of Labor, but little regional and local unions, you eventually sort of run your way into anarchists. You just can't avoid it. Now, if you were looking for anarchists back in the day, the place that you would go would have been Chicago. Chicago was home to more than 7,000 anarchists. The vast majority of them were Germans. What is it with Germans and causing problems? I don't know, but it's just sort of a thing. Now, the really interesting thing about this is they weren't at all secret about any of it. This is a brilliant maneuver, and you really have to hand it to, the anarchists and Marxists in general. They really are good about controlling the narrative of things and, sort of dictating the terms of stuff, especially when it comes to perception through media and information. The Marxists or the anarchists didn't make a secret at all about what they wanted to do. They actually published newspapers in Chicago, like the Anarchist Weekly, that you would pick up and read about, like editorials about the need to overthrow the bourgeois, wipe out the government, establish some kind of hippie commune worker utopia stuff, and what they were going to do to people and everything else. Nobody took it seriously. These anarchists, now, an important thing to understand about this is that many of these people were immigrants, and they, especially like in the case of the Germans, when immigrants came to America, they generally lacked skills for specific trades, or if they did, they were not going to be valued necessarily because they couldn't speak English for the most part, and they didn't have any money. So in order to sort of be able to make this transition into living in America, great song by James Brown, by the way, these anarchists, or these immigrants in general, would settle in areas of cities where their ethnic groups were very prominently represented. This like idea that ethnic groups all tend to sort of congregate together in one area of a city, there was a term for this. It was called a ghetto. Now, we look at ghetto as being something very different today. Ghetto just meant that that's where everybody was primarily the same. So, you would go, there would be a German ghetto, or a Jewish ghetto, or an Irish ghetto, or a Chinese ghetto. And I know that even my dad's a first-generation American. His parents were German immigrants. They lived in a German area of Chicago. And they just knew that, like, when you crossed a certain street, you went from being in the German area into, like, the Italian area. And then you would go to another place, it was all, Polish, and another area was all Irish. These immigrant groups tended not to get along with each other. But the anarchists got along with everybody because what they did was, for example, all the anarchists from different areas. So you would have German anarchists, Italian anarchists, Irish anarchists, Jewish anarchists, Chinese anarchists. They would all, because they're all anarchists and they all have this like socialism in them, they'd all get together at these meetings. And what they would do is they would make plans and sort of coordinate how to get the various ethnic groups that they were a part of really worked up and riled up about something. Then they would all go back into their various ghettos and sort of wheedle that in there and, get to work on getting everybody on board with what they were going to do. And this is how the anarchists were able to transcend like ethnic divisions because they were really united in their wacky anarchist socialist Marxism beliefs. Now, what was even more genius, though, is these anarchists, these immigrant anarchists, would run shops in their ghettos or their neighborhoods. And everybody knew who they were. It's like, you would go into Hans's butcher shop, oh, Hans, how's it going? Oh, we are doing well, Mr. Smith. How are you? Oh, I'm really well, thank you. Can I get, 3 pounds of, Jagerwurst and some schnitzel. Oh, jawohl, here's your sausage, here's your schnitzel. And how's everything going? Oh, it's going lovely. And pretty soon we are going to overthrow you and your government and all of your capitalist cronies. And we will establish the workers' paradise of the proletariat, and the bourgeois will be oppressed. Oh, those wacky socialists and their funny ideas. Have a good day, Hans. Da, you too, you too. Soon you will pay, bourgeois. Okay. The thing is, they were so open about it, nobody took it seriously. It was like a joke. They would walk by, they would pick up the latest issue of the Anarchist Weekly and like, oh, those wacky anarchists and their silly ideas. What are they talking about now? So all the while that Hans is, schlepping up, schnitzel and salami for you, in the basement of his butcher shop, he's making bombs and stockpiling weapons like they're preparing to invade a country. So the anarchists were really active in terms of planning strikes, getting into labor groups, building weapons and explosives and stockpiling them, waiting for that opportunity to hit, make a big time splash with this. Now, May the 3rd is the day that the AFL called for this nationwide strike. And coincidentally, there was already a big strike going on in the city of Chicago at the McCormick Reaper factory. Don't forget the Reaper. The Reapers were the machines that harvested grain. And since February, the McCormick workers had been on strike protesting wages and working conditions and hours. Now, using one of the 4 tools that we talked about, the McCormick factory had brought in strikers, replacement workers, strike breakers. Every day it was the same routine for the past 3 months. The strikers would be there in the morning, blocking the factory. The police would escort the strike-breaking replacement workers in. The strikers would hurl nasty insults at them and obscene gestures and spit and maybe throw some stuff, but that was about it. Strike breakers would do their work. At the end of the day, the police would show up and escort them out to boos, hisses, obscene gestures, etc. But everything was peaceful for the most part. Now, the anarchists decide that in order to, do this great national walkout day, they're going to host the 8-hour workday rally in front of the Reaper factory. Everything goes like normal. The police arrive. They escort in the workers to start the day. They arrive to escort them out. It's on the way out that the problem starts. On the way out, one of the anarchists is giving a speech and all of a sudden begins like shouting something like, "Get them, attack them, charge them." And the like strikers who were worked into a fury by what he was talking about rushed forward at the police as they were trying to escort out the strikebreakers. Facing a giant mob running at them, shouting, screaming, and possibly wishing them harm, the police pull out guns and open fire, killing two of the strikers, who the rest of the strikers then scatter and run away. Why'd they only kill two of them? Maybe they're trained at the same school of shooting that the stormtroopers are. Not really quite sure. But they took out two strikers. This is precisely what the anarchists wanted. They were prepared for that. And in fact, they had already set up a situation that would take advantage of what the police would do when the anarchists provoked an attack on them. Now, to be fair, the anarchists wanted more people dead, but they'll take the two and they'll run with it. And as we'll see in a moment, they did run with it quite effectively. Okay, so this is the end of this part. I have a second part of the lesson coming up that will be on a separate video cast. So peace and love until part C, I guess it would be. Thanks. Bye.